Hello, Cedarville University students. Here is our unsolicited advice for today. I do believe it's another important topic that you're probably not going to learn at a lot of other places. And I was reading through this article about from Quartz. I don't know what Quartz really is, but reading this article, and it's about teacher burnout rates. And I highlighted some stuff down here for you. And it says burnout's a major problem of all kinds of important professions, from physicians, nurses to social workers and attorneys, but it's particularly common among U.S. teachers. In the U.S. public school system, between 40 and 50% of new teachers will leave the teaching profession by their fifth year of service. I don't know about you, but that's kind of shocking. Almost half of the people that embark to be an educator, they leave the education profession in their first 5 years. So when you're sitting in our classroom, we've got, let's say almost 30 students. That means about 15 of them within their first 5 years will say, education's not for me. And in my 19 years at the school that I'm currently at, I have seen quite a few people start their teaching career and then end their teaching career early. And it's unfortunate. And we're spending lots of money getting prepared to be a teacher. And I believe as a Christian educator, we need to set up some safeguards for ourselves, some things that we can do to protect ourselves from burnout, because it is a difficult job. There are a lot of students who sometimes will make your life difficult. Um, and sometimes there's just days that don't go so well, some weeks, some months, even years that don't go so well. I can think of a time in my career, there was a handful of years that I seriously thought about choosing a different career about halfway through my career. And there's ways to protect yourself against this. You don't want to become a statistic. And let me pull up on the screen. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to fact check this. I'm like, is this real? And so I just Google it, teacher burnout rate, 40 to 50%. We know that between 40 and 50% of teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years of teaching. Like I said, that's kind of a shocking statistic. So what can you do to prevent some burnout? So I Googled how to prevent teacher burnout, 15 smart ways to prevent teacher burnout. One way is find someone you can be vulnerable with. I'm very fortunate. I work with friends, um, people I like working with. I can't imagine um, working with people that I just did not get along with. And that's the reality for a lot of teachers. And that kind of makes the situation a little bit worse. Practicing time management and striving for work-life balance. This is huge. This is huge. My first year as a teacher, I did not go home before 6. I don't think ever. I worked every Saturday my first year except for one. But I was single at that point. If you're starting off with a spouse and a family, it's going to be very difficult. And there are times where you will not be done with your work and you're just going to have to put it down. And it stinks. Create your own playtime no matter what grade you teach. I think what they're trying to say here is that you need to incorporate a little bit of fun in your classroom. And if you're not having fun as a teacher, certainly your students are not. Set professional development goals. This one I think is pretty important. I suggest going after your master's as soon as possible when you're younger. That way, when you have a family, a spouse, and things like that, um, continuing your education just becomes more difficult. So, your first few years, I suggest really attacking that. Make your day interesting. Do what you can to set some routine, but also vary that routine a little bit. Bring mindfulness and self care. Like I said, there's times where you're just going to have to, and I do this. I set aside 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. My wife and I are watching TV. We're going to watch some shows together, and we both put our schoolwork down, and we're just going to have to. That kind of goes along with number 7, declare me time. When you feel hopeless, trust me, there will be days where you feel that way. Gain some perspective. Especially as Christians, we can gain a lot of perspective. Sometimes we see ourselves only as teachers, and that day we are a failure. Um, but when we look at ourselves in the grand perspective, we're loved by the creator of the universe. It doesn't get much better than that. Don't give yourself extra homework. This is a big one I see a lot of people doing. They give assignments and Their assignments are like write 3 paragraphs about this, write 2 paragraphs about this. And there are times where you do have to have your students write paragraphs. But man, that's difficult to grade. Wouldn't it be great if for a lot of your assignments that you could, I understand you can't for all, but for a lot of your assignments, you made it objective. So the students, they mark A, B, or C, and you're grading it that way. And even putting stuff on Google Classroom or on Schoology, it grades it all for you. It saves a ton of time. It just makes your life a little bit easier. And some teachers say, but you won't be as good of a teacher that way. Well, you're no good as a teacher if you only last 5 years. I shouldn't say no good, but you're less good. So you have to do something to make make your job just a little bit easier. Don't make education your life. You are a teacher, but you're also a child of God. You're a son or a daughter. You might be a spouse, a sister, a brother. Don't forget about those other parts too. Um, find your own voice and allow it to change over time. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Don't be afraid to use the do not disturb sign. There's going to be times um, where you're just going to have to say no, and that's difficult for people pleasers. My first few years, I worked and lived in Cedarville, and that's not a terrible thing. But I had parent teacher conferences every day that I went into town. Um, Not on purpose, but parents would approach me and ask me things. I had students knocking on my door asking for help with homework. No, you can't do that. You have to set a boundary. If you don't set a boundary, you're going to go crazy. So you must set a boundary there. Find the people that get you, other educators. Fortunately, I married another educator, so it makes my life a little bit easier. Don't be afraid to find a new job. There's going to be, again, gain some perspective. There's going to be um, administrators that you might not get along with. Understand that administrators come and go. If they don't come and go, you might come and go. It stinks, but you might have to get a new job at some point in your career. Hopefully not, but you might have to. And just know it's a roller coaster. There's ups and downs. And when I say ups and downs, there might be a day that you're down. There might be 5 years that you're down. There might be 5 years that you're up. Um, it's tricky. And part of it deals with the students that you have, the administrators that you have, the workload that you have. Just keep it all in perspective. And as Christians, we need to be there present in our schools. And we need to do some practical steps to prevent teacher burnout because we don't want to be part of the 50% that gets burned out. And that's a staggering statistic. Anyway, thanks for listening to this. And your lesson is coming right up. So don't forget to watch the rest of your lesson. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. I got to figure out how to turn this off. There we go.